week, the kids were off from school running amok. This week, we're the ones doing all the running. Here comes the progress report. Not on our good kids, but on the more mischievous government and politics. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Aaron Ferguson, and this is Citizens Review, where we take an independent stance to provide you an accurate analysis of the bold questions you want answers. Yes, I said it. We're independent, we're accurate, and we're bold. Last week, we reviewed GB Power, Bahama Rock, and the Port Authority, also the container port catastrophe, with our guest Travis Williams, from my good friend from Mount Calvary Baptist Church in Sea Grape, Dave Barr, and Grand Bahama community activist Troy Garvey, all members of the Grand Bahama Committee of Concerned Citizens. We thank them for coming all the way from Grand Bahama to voice the concerns of the people. That's what we believe in on Citizens Review. The container port catastrophe to the people of Grand Bahama and the entire Bahamas was a heartfelt tragedy. But the problem I have is that Mr. Ingram told us to consider Hutchison Whampoa's track record, as to say that our boys, our young Bahamian men that died in the tragedy, were just casualties of war. Well, on Steve McKinney's show this week, he had a guest named P.A. And P.A. say he don't know if the name is Whampoa or Wampire. Well, I prefer Wampire, and I ain't say nothing, but I say a whole lot. I'm trying to figure out why Mr. Ingram always taking up for them other fellas, man. Anyway, if you missed the show last week, you can check it out. That episode and all of our episodes are on the website, citizensreviewtv.com. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, anything that you want to get to us, citizensreviewtv@gmail.com to email us. And you can also find us on Facebook at Citizens Review. Look us up. We're easy to find. Give us a call. Send us an email. Before we begin tonight's show, I want to take the liberty to address the perception of the show and what some people are saying. Now, I'm not talking about the naysayers and all them political strategists and all them disgusting people out there trying to figure out how to get us off the air, because there are those people. I'm talking about the persons who think, well, let me just give you a quote. Someone told me the other day, Aaron, it's good to see a young Bahamian position themselves for a life of politics. Keep up the good work. Now, I want to thank you for your vote of confidence and your encouragement and watching the show. But that is not why Citizens Review is here. For the benefit of those of you watching the first time and those of you who also may have a misconception of the show's purpose, listen. Citizens Review is a show inspired by you and for you, the citizens of the Bahamas and world citizens, and those who love the Bahamas and like to stay interested and stay involved. As citizens, we all review. We do it all the time, anywhere we go. We review in the barber shop. We review in the hair, nail salon, the beauty shop, on the bus stops, in the buses, the taxi drivers, our vehicles, driving home in all that traffic on the way home, in parking lots, anywhere frequented by hard-working Bahamians. We review. Just like yourself, we review. But we do it for a reason. Here's why we have this show. We do it, the review, so that we can orient ourselves to the circumstances unfolding all around us, whether they be political, environmental, educational, judicial, cultural, economic, anything. We have to grasp a sense of the implications that these things have for our children's future and their well-being. So if need be, we will be properly equipped with the necessary arsenal, the machinery, to challenge any agent that is opposed to our liberty and our rights to an abundant life. It's like the road in Nassau. We will be equipped to challenge any proponent of injustice if we continue the review, any encourager of inequity, and anybody who carries out policies that are captive and skullduggerous from within the Bahamas, because remember, you got some people from without trying to bring that stuff here too. I talking about all them treaties and stuff that we sign and we don't quite know what exactly in them. We will watch for that too. But if we take a look around the Bahamas, on another note, we seem to be getting a little soft, eh? I mean, we just let these fellas just carry on with anything. As the Bahamians of today, we've come to accept the trends of national foreign investment campaigns. One party call it foreign direct investment. The next party call it anchor project, whatever they want to call it. The Bahamas and the Atlantises and the Albany projects and, what's the one in Freeport that can't seem to get started? The GIN project. All of those projects that they have, those are what they call for us our economic stimulus packages. The both parties send to us and they give it to us under the pretense of improving the general quality of life in our society. Well, my brothers and sisters, we just take that wholeheartedly. When they tell us them bunch of foolishness, we just take it with a smile. And we just say it's better in the Bahamas. But we got to learn how to reject some of that. We're selling our birthright. Like in the Bible, you know how your brother Jacob, he sold for nothing more than a sweet part of a bunch of nothing. It's time that we look at the unemployment situation. Because we bought it, We bought into it. We inadequately purchase unemployment by selling our birthright that is certainly not sustainable or dependable. And to add to that, we were given the heirloom of this Bahamas. But our utilities have become ever more oppressive. BTC and BEC. One second. BEC want to raise the rates by 5%. You think they serious? They can't be serious because 6,000 persons were off the other day. And then another 6,000 few months before that. Where the rates can go? So that the numbers could be 8,000, Must see. And then the next question is BTC. Oh, BTC. See these cell, let me show you. See these cell phones they just give us? This phone, this is a BlackBerry, this one of them high-tech one, right? These are like drugs, just drugs. And BTC don't hide about it, They have replaced the fella selling drugs on the corner with the fella selling phone card. And you ever see somebody when their phone get turned off, they look like somebody who was on drugs and going through withdrawal. BTC got to stop their foolishness. But anyhow, we can deal with BTC. We have a show coming up. In fact, we're going to do a BTC month and then a BEC month, respectively. And we can deal with those companies that believe that they could fleece us and we got to pay for it. Because we pay and they fleece. It would be nicer if BTC would just have a police officer with a big gun that just pointed in your face when you come to pay your bill so that you feel like you actually get robbed, as opposed to them making you think that they gave you a bill that you should pay and it make any kind of sense. Anyway, our education system has become degenerate. The crime rate is increasing while all the police are out on Bay Street signing in governors, generals, and all kind of foolishness. The crime rate is increasing over the hill. And not even the character from the Bible, Job, could find himself having faith or any hope that improvement of this national squalor we call quality of life coming about. But my brothers, all is not lost. I assure you all is not lost. Maybe we expect too much of these leaders. We expect too much of them, Hubert Ingram and Perry Christie been in Parliament for almost 30-something years. What they couldn't figure out in the first 10 years and in the second 10 years, and they ain't find it in the third 10. So we expecting too much of them. You think national change can come from it? Maybe we've failed as responsible citizens to dare to presume that we would be a beneficiary of these packages they sent to us. It's our fault. The citizen, us, me and you, have had leaders that are the successors of our national champions, but they have all these new fellas succumbed to the disease of the conquered, the disease of injustice, disease of inequity, and worst of all, the disease of inhumanity. We ain't even treating people like people no more. I mean, forget that some of your rights gone, right? And you can't solve the crime problem. BTC and BEC robbing you blind. But now you don't even get treated like people. I mean, what's next? Let's take a trip back to when we had something to say about these things that they try on us. Let's take a trip back 68 years to be precise. You see that? That's when we was us. Back to May 1942, the Bahamas was met with the same atmosphere we face now. An expatriate ruling class owned the means of production in this country. Justice could not be had for the ordinary Bahamian citizens, and the workers couldn't change their conditions they labored under. Sound like a vampire to me, but the list goes on. But those Bahamians then took a stand. In that era, they shook the foundations of this country. They shook us up. Better than any Bahama Rock explosion. They shook the foundations of this country's morale, and they made us understand that we had to be taken seriously as people. Yes, I'm talking about the Burma Road riot. And it's time that we read the Riot Act, Bahamas. In May 1942, those Bahamian citizens conducted the ultimate citizens' review, and then they rebuked, putting an end to injustice rampant through the nation then, almost identical to the conditions we face now. And if you doubt what I'm saying, last week I read Bend or Break. You tell me if that speech from 40-something years ago didn't still apply. The conditions are the same. Read some of the speeches about education. I got education. This is the faith that moved mountain. Read some of the stories about labor. Same issues. Where is that Bahamas that carried us to Burma Road? Where are those kinds of Bahamians? Have we gone soft? We need to become that Bahamas again. We must run the review. And so up next, it's a progress report on government and politics. You won't want to miss this. Trust me, if you like this show, you're going to love this show. Catch us next after the break. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for watching Citizens Review, and let's get started with the review. The first thing I want to talk about is the opening of the House of Assembly. Now, let me make sure I have my notes here so I could give you a full rundown. The challenge with the opening of the House Assembly is that I can't quite figure out what the average Bahamian citizen gets out of it. Let's look at the facts. One, there's about 200-300 police officers, defense force officers out on Bay Street. Khakis, top brass, look like Empire Day out there. The old people know what I'm talking about when I say that. What exactly is that all about? The ceremony, the pomp and pageantry, the defense force was licking off cannons, 21-gun salute done with a cannon. I mean, I couldn't imagine the band out there playing. That's the sweetest part. You get to hear the Royal Bahamian Police Force band. But the challenge is, what is the point? To me, you could swear in the Governor General up in Government House, serve some hors d'oeuvres, and be done with it. Everybody gets swearing one time, Len Hollowesco and the Senate come up to Government House, get it all done, one room, finish. Show it to us on TV, get back to work. But What happens is they block Bay Street. You can't get to work. Everything is confuddled. I don't quite understand it. What do we get out of it? And we got to pay the bills. We got to pay for them police to be to work. We got to pay for the ministers to be chilling out in the front of Queen Victoria doing nothing. None of us get a day off for them to do their thing. And they give me, we got show now, so they give me press pass. Let me show it to you. That's how I looked yesterday. I had my little press pass on. But what is the point? What do we get out of it? I don't see it. And I hope nobody get robbed. I hope nobody get raped. I hope nobody gets shoot. And I know you're going to say I'm being harsh, but I hope nobody gets shoot. And I hope nobody over the hill, where the police certainly weren't getting any problems, because all the police was down on Bay Street. Bay Street was the safest place to be in the world. Yesterday, you could have had your money on the floor, and you would have been protected. What I did see, though, was some Bahamians at work. Randy, the drummer, DeVoe. He was out there on Bay Street, and me and him started chatting. He's the hardest working man in tourism. You know, he'd be out there, bing, ding, ding, he'd be kicking up that little drum and playing all this stuff. I also met Miss Lewis, a lady they call Auntie from Elizabeth Estates. Miss Lewis, this one for you. And then I met a fella named Charlie Lockhart who said, boy, you know, we really changed in the Bahamas. Because if the foolishness that going on in the country now was happening and they had a house opening ceremony, they'd have started pelting them with tomato. Mr. Charlie Lockhart is a little more, he's a radical. And I suggest that we start getting into that kind of stuff, because we can keep getting any kind of treatment. They can treat us any way they want, and they can spend up all our money to do it. We have to fund government house. We paying these people. We paying the maids. We paying the waiters. We paying the butler. We paying the police up top on the hill. We paying everybody. But the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, the Chief Justice, and the Governor General, everybody's standing around in the middle of Parliament and blocking the road. I don't get it. And some of you like your pomp and pageantry, and let me tell you something. Children starving. We got children going to these schools. I don't want to hear about no pomp and pageantry. We have work to do. Work to do. The court system in a mess. Chief Justice don't got no time to be out on Bay Street swearing. I hear, get to work, man. Get to work. That's all I'm saying. Now, next up on this review, we got Arthur Foulkes. And Arthur Foulkes is a hard-working Bahamian. He's done great for the Bahamas. But with his appointment comes some interesting ideas. Now, last show, we did a video, an interview with a young gentleman by the name of Luby Georges. And Mr. Georges talked to us about his predicament, a man without a country. Now, let me give you some information before we play this clip. Arthur Foulkes, like Luby Georges, was born in the Bahamas of two Haitian parents, Dr. William Foulkes and Julie Foulkes Nee Marigneville. That is the name. Now, I don't speak French and I don't speak Creole, so I'm pronouncing it as best as I can. But that's an interesting idea. Born of two Haitian parents, lives in the Bahamas. Well, my questions are natural. The questions that come up for me are, he went to school with us, he grew up with us, and Arthur Foulkes fought for freedom, a great Bahamian, work hard for this country. But it's said to me that Haitians have nothing to offer. They come to take our things. They come to this. They come to that. But now the Governor General is a Haitian born of Haitian parents. There's some serious questions we have to talk about. Let's have a look at that interview that we did last week, and then we come back and talk some more issues. We have here on the show Luby Georges. Mr. Georges is a good friend of mine, and also let's talk about your story a little bit, because this clip that I'm going to show afterwards reflects on it a bit. You were a student at LW Young. You're born in the Bahamas to two Haitian parents. You're a student at L.W. Young. You graduated the first graduating class of Doris Johnson High School.
Right.
But you don't have a passport. You don't have identification much beyond your driver's license. Talk about how it is to be a man without a country.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well, we all know it's a process.
Yeah.
We don't want to take away from that.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating, you know?
Yeah.
Being that I grew up with you, I born in the same hospital as you, me and you went to the same schools, but your life is progress and you moving on, but yet mine is on hold because of what? The government or whoever the movers and the shakers are. Exactly.
Yeah.
The movers and shakers on top, the people who on top, they know what's going on. They know it's a process, right? But why does the process have to be the way it is?
Yeah.
That's what we want to know, you know? We don't expect it to be a 1 day, 2 day, or 3 week thing.
Yeah, it can't work like that.
No,
but it gotta work.
It gotta work.
Yeah.
Why is it not working? Why do we have to be the ones, you know, our life put on hold, you know?
Yeah.
Growing up when we was younger or whatever, yeah, I used to traveling. But after 18, after you done submit your application and all that sort of stuff,
You can't.
as a man now, when you really need to be exposing yourself to the outer world to try gain some knowledge, and then you better appreciate where you from and your country and all that because of seeing the world. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So we want to know why our process is taking
Yeah, I mean,
so long.
I wouldn't have been able to go off to school. I wouldn't have been able. I've traveled to most of the United States, most of the Caribbean,
Right.
and I mean, how would I have done that without having a passport?
Exactly.
We wouldn't have been able to do that. That's up, man. What if we had denied Arthur Folks countrymanship? What if we had said, no passport for you, Sir Arthur, as a child? What if we had said, you go to our schools, but like Mr. George's, you are allowed no rights? What would come of the Governor General? Would he be Governor General today? Maybe Janet Boswick would have gotten it in that case. But what would come of him? All that I'm suggesting to you, and I ain't giving you all the answers. I don't have them. All that I'm saying is there's something wrong with our policy. If Arthur Folks is the product of 2 Haitian parents and gave to this country well, if Sir Lyndon Pinling is the product of Jamaicans, if our leaders have come about from other means other than the Bahamas, perhaps there is something that we need to consider there. Otherwise, tell me, get Sir Arthur out, just like you're telling me, get everybody else out. I just have some questions. Somebody got to answer them. It ain't my job. I ain't no politician. But maybe the Shane Gibson, the Loftus Roker, the Branville McCartney, the Brent Simonet policy of immigration has some issues that would not have accommodated Arthur Folks. I just asking. Stephen Dillett, the first black Bahamian said to be the first black Bahamian in Parliament, of free Haitian slaves, not of Haitian parentage like Sir Arthur, born in Haiti, came to the Bahamas, was the voice of black free people in the Bahamas. There's a lot going on, and we're not quite talking about it. But the new Governor General, who is certifiably Haitian, brings the conversation to head. Let's start dealing with it. Next person we got, Michelle Jean. She is the Governor General of Canada. She is a Haitian woman. Could you imagine? Michelle Jean, along with Arthur Folks, are both Commonwealth country generals. 2 great Haitian people. Questions to be answered, Bahamians. I just raising them here in this forum. Let's go over, though. Donald McCartney, who was supposed to be on the show last week, did some great research about the Haitian influence in the Bahamas. And he has compiled a list of surnames that are from freed Haitian slaves. Let's look over the name. The book that Donald McCartney wrote, I don't have the book here today, is The Bahamas, Bahamian Culture and the Factors That Impact Upon It. That's another one of those books that I've been given since we started this show. Praise the Lord for that. Let me take this government house foolishness off. The names are Benaby, for Nathaniel Benaby of Royal Bank. Benjamin, Ortland H. Bodie. These are the last names that come from Haiti. Frank Claude, that's a friend of my father's. Bonamy, that's another one. Richard Demerit, the former High Commissioner to London. Earl DeVoe, the Minister of Environment, Works. They can't quite figure that out, but he's, you know him. Stephen Dillett, the great first black parliamentarian. Etienne Depuch, Eugene Depuch, Pierre Depuch, Eileen Depuch Karen, all of them Haitian last names. Papa Doc Duvalier and Maureen Duvalier, the entertainer from back in the day. Arthur Folks, Dion Folks, you know them. They are great Bahamians. Carlton Francis, Miles Laroda, Rodney Monca, Eugene Nuri, Dr. Nuri, who was ambassador to Haiti from the Bahamas. Ken Perigord, the fellow who's fixed to Corvaduff, always on Bodie's show. Barbara Pierre, the first woman director of immigration. Sidney Poitier, who has admitted in his book, The Measure of a Man, that his parentage and his background is Haitian. And Phil Simon, the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, we have questions to answer. The solution isn't as simple as we think. We got to start dealing with this immigration problem. We got some more review on the next side of this break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. We are going to continue the review. We've dealt with the Governor General, Sir Arthur Folks, and now we're going to talk about the Chief of Injustice, Michael Barnett. Now, the idea is Sir Michael Barnett, but Eddie Hanna, who is the outgoing Governor General, rejected the Queen's honor for the second time. Going into office, he said, listen, Queen, I don't want to be no sir. I was a fighter for independence in the Bahamas, and if you want to offer something, let's do our own honors in the Bahamas. So I embraced that. So nobody is sir on this show. It's just Michael Barnett and Arthur Folks. So, Mr. Barnett, interesting character, because the Prime Minister, in an attempt to compromise the Bahamas, offered Chief Justice to Mr. Barnett. Now, Mr. Barnett has been described as a great legal mind, one of the best, the smartest lawyer, one of the smartest lawyers we have in the country. But Mr. Barnett accepted the appointment. And there are very few things that you can do by yourself in the Bahamas to make big changes to the country. Because you have to get groups together and you have to rally up and all of that stuff. But the Chief Justice, by accepting the appointment of the Prime Minister to Chief Justice, single-handedly compromised and disgraced the justice system in the Bahamas. Now, I was warned by lawyers to be careful because, you know, these justices sensitive. And I mean, listen, if you can't say that in the Bahamas, then I don't know what country this is I in. So now there it is. I said it. He went from managing partner of one of the top 3 white knight firms in the Bahamas to Attorney General, and pop, boom, friend, put you right in. From the Senate, Attorney General, Chief Justice. I don't understand how you could go from the F&M stump speech into the courthouse and say that you're objective. I don't get it. Maybe it's me. Next topic. These wigs. Let's show a picture of these wigs. I think we have Lynn Hollowesco in one of these big wigs that they just put on. Now, there's been traditionally an argument in the Bahamas about dreadlocks. The Rasta and all of that, people have distrust. You don't want your daughter Mario Rasta. You don't want this. You don't want that. But Rasta is natural hair to black people. But these wigs, I don't know no black people that just grow hair look like that wig. Do you know anybody? Not even Miss Hollow Esquel. The point is that we have some beautiful black men and women, some beautiful people with beautiful dreads, beautiful hair. Lauryn Hill got the hair and all of this stuff. But we somehow trust these people with the wigs. I submit today, if my daughter brought home a young man with dreads and then a young man with that wig on, that signified to me that he could wear a wig that don't have nothing to do with him, his culture, his history, his background, then I tell him I the fella in the dread, because them wigs, they have a history of teeth in. Next up, Mr. Pinder. Now, he got sworn into the House of Assembly yesterday. And we interviewed Ryan Pinder on this show, but I had a viewer, Miss Lewis. Not Miss Lewis from Elizabeth. This is another Miss Lewis, who said that there are some issues about Ryan Pinder that need to be brought up. So I promised that I would read it. We got email about it about 3 times. And I have a guest in studio to talk to me about it. We did a good interview with Mr. Pinder, but here are the questions that my contributor brought up. Here are the questions. Being sworn in to vote for the first time in Parliament and not in the ballot box. We hope that he votes in Parliament and that his record is better in Parliament than in the box. Mr. Pinder doesn't work for a Bahamian company, works for a U.S. law firm. He probably gets paid in U.S. dollars. These are all the speculations. His mother, his wife, and his children are American. Never once has he casted a vote and had 3 chances. Hasn't provided proof of renunciation of citizenship in the United States. I don't know. We asked him for proof on the show. I don't know if he's provided proof yet. Also, the writers said, perhaps he should start a group for all the expatriates in the offshore banks, like Royal Bank and Scotia Bank, and title himself the Expatriate MP, the official representative of all of those who come to the Bahamas to get something and not to offer anything to the people. Boy, that's why they had to send me 3 different emails to put that on. But we put it on nevertheless. We have in studio with us a guest to talk about these issues and more, the famous Mr. Rodney Monka, the leader of the Workers' Party. Mr. Monka.
Sir.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine.
All is well?
Yes, indeed.
You ready to have some fun?
Let's have some fun.
We got to review these issues.
Well, I'd like to start with the Chief Justice.
The Chief Justice?
Yeah. I disagree with you.
Okay.
I think that the Chief Justice, under our system, is entitled to the title.
Sir?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, that's a simple disagreement.
And accordingly...
Still disgracing the whole system by being compromised.
No. And accordingly, he ought to be referred to as Sir Michael.
Yeah.
There's nothing improper or indecent about that.
That's fine.
In the case of His Excellency, the former Governor General,
yes,
it is regrettable that he did not take a knighthood from Her Majesty. Let us understand the system under which we operate. He is the personal representative of our sovereign lady, the Queen.
Sovereign lady.
Yes, and if he did not want a knighthood, I submit
he shouldn't have been Governor General.
That he should not have accepted it. Nevertheless, having accepted it, he is perhaps the greatest Governor General that I have met.
Amen.
And I'd like to thank him on behalf of my party, the Workers' Party, and on behalf of Bahamians everywhere. He did a wonderful job. I knew that my party had issues with the party that was responsible for making him Governor General. We petitioned him, we marched to him, he met with us, and every time that he did, I left satisfied.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think Arthur Hanna is a man of his word.
Yeah.
He said when he went in, he was not accepting the knighthood, and he came out saying that he's not accepting it. His feelings are he's a fighter for independence. I with that. Now, Mr. Pinder.
What about Mr. Pinder?
There's a viewer of this show that categorized him as an expatriate MP. Now, you little biased. You ran against Mr. Pinder in the Elizabeth election. Do you think that's a fair categorization?
Well, what are the realities? The realities were that he had dual citizenship, right? He's now said that he has renounced it.
Yes.
I have accepted his words, and for me, it is no longer an issue.
All right.
The party
does not accept.
The party of Lyndon Pinley, Arthur Dion Hanna, and all of those PLP black freedom fighters have said that this man is good, he is qualified, and overwhelmingly the Negroes in Elizabeth Estate voted for him. I congratulate him on his victory, and I'm extremely happy that the FNM was mature enough to not frustrate him in his attempt to being sworn in as the duly elected representative.
Yeah.
And so I've accepted that, and I've taken my sword as it relates to him, and I have it hidden behind my back.
Oh, so it's coming later.
No.
No?
So, you know, for me, it's not an issue. Perhaps the PLP is beginning to revolutionize the society. We have foreigners who have controlled our judiciary from time immemorial, and also from independence. Perhaps that might be the solution to a lot of these problems. Let's elect more foreigners, and let's see what happens.
My goodness. Well, you heard it here first at Citizens Review. Perhaps the PLP's revolution is to not just bring anchor projects, but to bring anchor people to fix the Bahamas that may or may not be Bahamians. We'll be right back after these breaks. Okay, we're back to the show, and we're doing the review. We have Rodney Monka in studio with us, and Mr. Monka wants to address the container port situation. Last week, we had the group, the Grand Bahama Committee of Concerned Citizens, here with Troy Garvey, a community activist. But Mr. Monka is an activist himself. As of late, most of the protests that have happened down on Parliament has been as a result of Mr. Monka. Mr. Monka, the container port tragedy in Freeport, people say the Prime Minister sided with Hutchison Wambaya.
Yes, I agree with that assessment. I think the Prime Minister made a fundamental error. 3 citizens have been killed at that site.
Yes.
Immediately, it should have been cordoned off, and it should have become a crime scene. The Prime Minister, having been accompanied by the Minister of National Security and the most senior police officer on that island, should have ordered the arrest of all of the senior management who were on duty that day.
Yes.
Because as I understand it, the storm came first. They had enough time to seek refuge, and then a decision was made shortly thereafter to send those workers back out there. When the majority of the workers, as I understand it, had pointed out to management that the entire area ought to have been closed down.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. 3 citizens have been killed. And the least that ought to happen is that Hutchison Wambaya ought to have been charged, their senior management. The least that should happen is that they should be charged with if not murder, manslaughter by negligence.
You know, the most interesting thing that was brought to my attention.
And they are getting away
Yes.
because those persons in Grand Bahama are black.
Yeah.
You hear me? And Ingram made a serious error. He's wrong. It is not too late to correct it.
Yeah.
CID ought to have been dispatched, and a criminal investigation ought to take place. You watch the first world nations.
Yeah.
In the U.S., with the mine explosion, the local district attorney has already announced
That he
a
will file
criminal
charges.
probe is taking place.
Yeah.
All right?
In China, even when there were toys that were making children sick in China, the CEO of the country was put to death. Of the company was put to death. Look it up.
Yeah. No.
So if what good for the goose still got to be good for the gander. If you can't do it in China, how come in the Bahamas?
Well, my point here is, and you know, with the greatest respect, I'm going to take North China for a second.
Yes.
And my submission is simply this, that Mr. Ingram has failed to deal with the situation in accordance with the law of the Bahamas. You hear what I'm telling you? All right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a quick story. I told the media one day, anonymously, how a particular young man died. And the next thing I know, the coroners came for me. I had to go before the coroner's court
Yeah.
and testify.
Really?
Yeah. All right? And so all I'm saying is that Mr. Ingram is making a mistake, the FNM is making a mistake, and the people of Grand Bahama ought to organize and carry out political action against Hutchison Wampire and against the government.
Yes.
There ought to be a criminal investigation. Three whole black men
Dead.
were killed at that job site. And the most that Ingram is talking about, that has me very, very upset. And the only reason why we are not in Freeport, because we don't have the financial resources. Other than that, I would have gone down to Freeport. All right? Because when you listen to the account of the workers, clearly criminal negligence took place.
Yes.
And it isn't too late to bring charges against Hutchison Wampire. And the economic argument for not bringing charges is criminal and irresponsible. I don't care how much jobs Hutchison Wampire is creating on the island of Grand Bahama. You're talking about a case where 3 persons died and a number of persons injured, and the vast majority of the staff who were on duty having been terrorized by an irresponsible and criminal decision to compel them to return to work. And Ingram must stop treating black people like that.
It ain't fair.
It isn't fair.
It ain't
And of
worth
course,
nothing.
we're in trouble because Mr. Christie and his
Will
party,
say nothing.
they will say nothing because
Quiet.
they are all in bed
With each other.
with Hutchison Wampire and them.
Ah,
We're in
Jesus.
trouble.
The vampire sucking everybody's
Yeah,
blood.
that's what Ingram has given us an economic reason, right? 3 men are dead. And I'm very concerned about the Chinese presence in the Bahamas. Right here at the Sports Center,
Yeah.
every night they catch big fire.
Oh, well, we tell Bahama.
All right? And it looks to me as 1, SIB isn't monitoring them. 2, nobody seriously in the construction industry, right? And, you know, it's very depressing. And, of course, we now have to wait for 6,000 to 7,000 Chinese to come to build Bahama. And I try to figure out what is the economic incentive. And Mr. Christie and Mr. Ingram should stop selling out poor black people and stop selling out our sovereignty.
My goodness. We have some diversions that have been happening lately. The FNM government have put in front of the people ideas of policy that they will push forward, but then they don't carry it out. There are some problems with that for me. Marital rape. You and I on radio spent time talking about marital rape. And then we talked about this gambling issue, land reform. There was a committee formed. Paul Turnquest brought the information.
Look,
they talked about
as
all
it relates to gambling,
but they kick it off all off the
to
table.
gambling,
Yeah.
Mr. Ingram is not serious about it.
No.
It is only when he tables the bill
That
am
we
I
even
prepared
talk about it.
to debate it.
I with
all right?
you.
As it relates to marital rape, Ingram, as a black man, gotta know that a married man could
Lord.
never,
Now, you
never
know me and you
rape.
disagree on that.
Yeah, but you're not married, right?
Yeah, you know,
You're single, right? Right?
Very single.
Well, I've been married for over 30 years.
Okay, so
all right?
I shouldn't be in your
And
business.
so I'm saying to you, I'm not listening to these people. Ingram's decision to introduce rape in holy marriage is the work of the devil.
But women's rights have to be protected.
Listen to me. Women
But,
in the Bahamas,
this
there
the point.
is no
This the point.
woman in the
This
Bahamas.
the speech from the throne, and marital rape ain't on this. They ain't gonna talk about it no more.
Yeah, but-
they waste all our time talking
Yeah,
foolishness.
Well, you know, Ingram might have been appeasing some people in the States and so forth.
But I say this
Right?
to Loretta Butler Turner. It is your mandate to protect the rights of women if you feel that that is important. Bring the bill back if you had. Bring it back
No.
if you think it's important.
No.
We got to wrap up in a second.
Yeah.
Give me some last words.
The bill should die. Leave married man and his wife for over 10,000 years.
Women need
married
rights
man,
and protection.
woman has rights in the
Rape is the crime.
Listen to me,
man.
listen
You
to me,
can't
listen to me.
rape your wife.
When single people are having sex, that's rape. All right? That's rape.
I don't know the best.
In marriage, there's no rape.
No.
And the day a Bahamian woman, listening to foreign white people, began to suggest that her husband is raping her, that is the time for her to pack up her Johnny bundle and go.
Amen.
All right? And I'm suspicious of the woman who's talking about her husband raping her. She's keeping sweetheart.
Yeah.
All right? And there's one thing I don't tolerate. I don't believe that the married woman should keep sweetheart. I don't believe that anyone should keep sweetheart.
Mr.
So
Monka,
I ain't listening to them. It is the works of the devil and Mr. Ingram's new discussion on gambling
Yeah.
will be very interesting. But no views will I express
Until it's on the
until
table.
he puts it on the table.
Well, that's that segment. Mr. Monka, you always provide us with good information and excellent review. I appreciate you for coming on the show. We'll be back after these
Thank you.
messages. Spicy show this week. Boy, we had some fun on here, and Mr. Monka certainly light up the stage. The citizens arrest portion, but let me make some notes. First, I know the PLPs must be happy because their First Lady, Bernadette Christie, is in town this week. She's on a visit. We saw her at the opening of the house, and I saw a wonderful picture of the family up on Bahamas Uncensored. Remember, everybody, it's better in the Bahamas. The citizens' arrest this week, we're going to deal with the nominees for governors generals. Because I don't quite know how you ascend to the highest office in the country, and I've heard that the Prime Minister just pick whoever he wants to pick, right? But the nominees were, as they were talked about, Arthur Folkes, Janet Bostwick, and Lynn Holowesko, the current president of the Senate, Janet Bostwick being the former Attorney General. These are my challengers. The questions that came up, these are some token Negro questions to me. What else do they want was the first question. And the second question was, who deserves this based on what they've done for us? The Bahamas must be a utopia. And I ask that because everything must be fixed, all the problems must be solved, and everything must be working the way it's supposed to work. If that is not the case, then we owe them nothing. They were paid well for the jobs they've done. They get pensions if they deserve the pensions. That is what we owe a civil servant. Nothing more, nothing less. You know why? Because children still starving. We still got children in D schools. We still got a bunch of things to get to work on. So if you happen to be in your 70s, or for Arthur's sake, in your 80s, and still got energy, like Lynn Holowesko, and Janet Bostwick and Mr. Folks or Sir Arthur Folks. He tell me I got to say sir. If you still have energy, get to work. Help build the country. If you're still alive, you want to be Governor General, help build the country. That's what we need done. Write a book. Sir Arthur Folks wouldn't write a book. I can't understand it. You're an armchair historian walking around telling the whole Bahamas about the story of the Bahamas. Write a book, sir. Because, and this sounds harsh, but the day after you die, what you have to tell us dies with you unless you write a book. Frederick Douglass, a former slave, educated himself, wrote books. George Washington Carver, the lady you know as Dr. Marguerite Johnson, Maya Angelou, wrote books. Write a book, man. Janet Bostwick, you are the first woman in cabinet. Write a book. Tell young Bahamian women about your story. Tell them what they need to look forward to. Dame Doris Johnson wrote a book 30-something years ago. What's wrong with these crew now? But we settling for them and we talking about what they deserve, and what they deserve to do is to get to work. If all of us building this country together, as long as you got life, you got to get to work with us. So the Governor General appointees, the nominees, all of y'all get locked up this week. Lenora Wesco, Janet Bostwick, Sir Arthur Folks, you lock up. Get to work. Write your books. Make your contribution still, because it doesn't end. It never ends. Not when the country got work to be done. Thank you for tuning into the show. Check it out on citizensreviewtv.com. We had fun this week, boy. See you next week.